Every day you wake up is a fresh start, a blank page, if you will, a new opportunity to write another chapter of this amazing thing called life, your own book. Don't you love those inspirational quotes? Those are a few that have stuck with me through the years because how true are they, right? I mean, you literally get to write your own story. If you get in the right mind frame and see things through the right lens or perspective, the possibilities are endless. And that kind of brings me back to my writing. Through my writing, I take life events, which, mind you, I have plenty of romances, heartaches, heartbreaks, embarrassing moments, and whatnot fueling my writing. And that's what makes it so fun, is all these real life experiences being molded, if you will, to fit certain dialogue and make the stories a little bit more interesting. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about writer's inspiration, where you get it from, and here's some pretty unbelievable stories. And I'm going to let you in on a little sneak peek of some of my works in progress. Alright? Hey, and no sharing the embarrassing stories with anyone else. This is between us, me and you, the Midnight Readers. There we go. So a fellow author asked me the other day, where do you get your inspiration from? What happens when you have writer's block or you feel like the wells run dry, so to speak? And, I just kind of froze for a moment because I've actually never really experienced that. There's been times where I'm not sure which direction I want to go at the end of a book or at a certain pivotal moment within a storyline. And it takes me like a few days, sometimes a couple months to come back to and go back in and be like, okay, this is the direction I want to go with it. But I've never had like writer's block because in those times I start working on another work. I start working on another book, another storyline until I feel like I'm ready to go back to that one. I don't ever just stop and be like, oh my god, I'm blocked. That's not something I've experienced. And what I told this other author was, as for me, it helps me to just keep work flowing. I constantly always have like 2 to 3, maybe sometimes 4 works in progress, whips, if you will, going at once. And a lot of them pull from different things that have happened in my life. And this kind of brings me to a funny story. So I was thinking about my first job recently, and I was like, God, if I were to pitch that, oh, it's a book about my first job, if you pitch it like that, and it doesn't sound exciting. It sounds, I'm not gonna lie, it sounds pretty lame. It's not something I'd be like, oh, let me read a book about your first job. No, that's not something that would excite me or get me going in any way. But if I presented it as a story I probably shouldn't be telling, a story that followed a 15-year-old girl into adulthood, that crossed the lines of legality and ventured into a world that she would have never expected finding herself in, that might be a little bit more enticing. But then I go, gosh, I don't know that I should actually write a book about that because I don't know, I kind of worry, like, what if the people that owned that company, I mean, obviously I wouldn't use their real name, but what if these people ever read it? What if the coworkers read it? What, there's a bunch of what ifs. It's all completely true, and it's pretty bad. Okay, you know what? I feel like you need to hear it. I wrote a little bit, if you will. Just here, listen to this, and then you'll see what I'm saying. Ready? Alright, here we go. It's called Crew Chief. I held my breath as white smoke filled the front of the cab of the U-Haul truck. The folding chair that I was sitting on wobbled with every bump. It served as a makeshift third seat, which, might I add, was quite illegal. The only seatbelt I had to stop me from flying through the window when we came to an abrupt stop was the arms of the guys on either side of me, assuming they were able to stick them out quick enough. I couldn't hold my breath any longer. I breathed in the air that reeked of apples and marijuana. They had made a makeshift bong with the leftovers from the party. I cursed myself for choosing to ride up front on the way back to the office. However, in my defense, when making the decision, I had been under the impression that anything had to be better than my experience riding in the back of the U-Haul truck on the way to the event. There were 5 of us who rode in the back, standing, holding onto the wooden planks of the sides. With every bump in the road, we scrambled not only to catch ourselves from falling, but to stable the tipping tables and equipment. It was the last bump before coming to the park that caused the top of the double-stacked hot boxes to topple to the floor. We hopped down and scrambled to flip it back upright as brown liquid oozed out. Upon opening it, we discovered a pan of the beans had spilled inside the hot box. I forced myself not to gag as the guy scooped the beans back into the pan and prepared to serve it. Just then, my heart sunk, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I leaned into the guy next to me and asked a question I really didn't want to hear the answer to. Is it just me? Or does it look like that bean has legs? Yeah, apparently we've started our own breed in the kitchen. Just try to pick those ones out whenever you see them. I was confused. I leaned in again, needing clarification. Own breed? Albino cockroaches. The guys even made up a song about them. I'll tell you later. With that, he laughed and walked towards the rest of the crew to greet the clients. Let me back up. I realized you may be wondering how I found myself in this situation to start with. This was 15-year-old me. I was excited earlier in the week when I learned that I was old enough to get a work permit and my first job. A high school friend, who was older than me, told me of this awesome job that she had heard about. It was but 10 minutes from my house, offered a flexible schedule, and a relaxed atmosphere. And on top of that, the pay was great. So, when she invited me to go down and apply with her, I immediately agreed. The interview went as I had imagined interviewers would go, and much to our delight, we were both hired on the spot. Okay, that's just a taste of it. Other elements of the book include an owner doubling as the cook in the kitchen, and he had red hair. So imagine this red hair, pale skin, freckles, massive chest hair, guy wearing nothing but a leather apron and pants, sweating all over the food, all over everything, and in the back, cooking, and you have to go back there and get the food from him to load the trucks to go to the parties that you're going to be catering, right? And every time you see him, he asks you, he looks at you, he makes a sound, he goes, and he looks at you and goes, you legal yet? Guys, that's what I had to deal with until, gosh, even after I turned 18. That was from 15 to 18, and then it went to a new owner, thank goodness. But the uncomfortable part was the pay was great. It was super flexible. It was right by my house. And these ended up being, and the owners ended up being my friends' parents that I had gone to middle school with. So there was like all these connections. It was supposed to be great, but it was beyond illegal. It was wild. Every party, something happened. Like, one that sticks in my mind very vividly is, after a while, a bunch of people from my high school started working there, right? And there was this one guy that I was really close with. He was a really sweet guy. But there was one party we were getting back, and there was like several trucks lined up in the alley. We were all unloading quickly, trying to get done for the day. It was just a bunch of people in and out. And the person running our party that day was like, hey, hurry up and wrap up all the hot stuff. And at this place, we had industrial-sized aluminum foil, right? Okay, so this guy has the foil wrap, and he comes running towards me, and I was standing there, I look at him, and I'm like, what? I put my arms like this, I'm like, what are you doing? And he smashes my arms down to the side, right? And he starts running in circles with me in the middle with the aluminum foil, around and around, and before I know it, I'm stuck like a dang burrito. And I'm like, what are you doing? We're gonna get in so much trouble. And mind you, I was so shy. That's a big part of why I never said anything about anything that was going on. I just stayed shyly in the back. And mind you, I was like one of 3 girls that worked there. It was all guys. Besides that, and most of them were a lot older. They were high school age up until their late 20s. Some even older. But, right? So he wraps me up. I'm in the alley, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? Because that stuff's strong. And it was the, like, length of my full torso. It's like right below my shoulders, all the way down to my waist. I couldn't move. And he's sitting there cracking up, and the owners come out. And they look at me, and they look me up and down, and they look at the guys that are standing around cracking up, and they're like, somebody cut her out of that, and let's get going. No more playing around. And they look at me as they say it. I'm like, so I put my head down, and I just keep working, but it was thing after thing like this, nonstop. There was one of the women that worked there that had very large breasts, and she would just she was klepto. She literally would take everything and shove it under her boobs. And she would pull all sorts of stuff out. She'd have money, she'd have lighters, she'd have fruit. It was wild. Just things like that went on. And there was a different story every party we went to. Something always happened. So, like I said, that could make a great book, but I feel like if any of the truth ever came out, there could be a lot of trouble. I mean, mind you, it's been years since any of that took place, but the company is still in business, and from what I'm saying, and me being me, a lot of people could figure out which it is. So that is a story I think I'm going to put a pin in and not do anything with right now, but could you imagine? The Adventures of Catering, crew chief. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's wild. But like, that's what I'm saying. You have these life experiences that like sometimes like tend to get forgotten about, and as you pull from them, you can just really manipulate and create like these fun, crazy adventures. Like, I mean, this one on its own was an adventure in itself. However, it doesn't have to be that wild. You can have any sort of memory and make it into something, or string a few of them together. And for example, this is a current work in progress right now that will be coming out in fall. Here's a little clip of something that actually happened to me in childhood that might very well have been the strangest interaction I had. And yeah, I'll let the clip speak for itself. Here it is. Check it out. In my preteen years, my uncle passed away, and family from his side that we had never met attended the funeral, and only immediate family was invited back to my grandmother's house for the after ceremony, if you will. And one of my uncle's sisters showed up with her son, and he happened to be my age. So as we get back home after the funeral, my uncle's sister and her son don't show up, and so I'm the only kid. I'm kind of bored. My next door neighbor, who was a good friend, kept peeking through the fence and asking if I wanted him to come over, and so finally, like, okay. So he like kind of hops the fence and sneaks over and comes to hang out with me like he normally did. And we're just hanging out, and then all of a sudden the sister and her son show up. And they come and find us, and they ask if he can hang out with us because he's the only other kid there. And we're like, yeah, sure. And he actually ends up being a really cool guy. So it was chill. We were just all hanging out, playing around outside and whatnot, until my neighbor had to go home for dinner. And he doesn't come back the rest of the night, so it's just me and this kid now. That was my uncle's nephew. And that was not my uncle through blood. He was my uncle through marriage. So this kid is hanging out, and we actually like just totally hit it off. We have a really good time, and then night falls, and it's time for them to go. As his mom's saying goodbye to everyone, he asked me to walk him out to the car, and I'm like, okay, sure. And he pops the trunk. What I saw then shook me to the core. Now, let me just like put it out there. Back then, right, when I was growing up, there weren't a whole lot of TV shows like Buffy and the Vampire Slayer and all that stuff. There weren't all these TV shows and media subjecting us to all this stuff. So when he popped that trunk, and my eyes fell upon all these tools and weapons and bottles, and I didn't know what the hell I was looking at, I was shocked. I was like, what are they? Like, are they, mafia? Like, what is going on? Are they criminals? Those were the first thoughts to my mind. And then he pulls out a wooden stake, and he hands it to me. And he says, promise you'll keep it for protection. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I'm like, what the hell is this guy talking about? What the hell is this thing? Am I supposed to put it in the ground? Right? And so I'm holding this wooden stake, and then his mom comes out, and she looks at it, she goes, good choice. And then they say goodbye, and like it was normal. So my current whip is 12 years later, down the road now. She's 21, the guy is like 23. And she goes to a popular venue that plays music, has a bar, has appetizers, all that sort of stuff, right? And it's a like popular hangout for her and her friends. And she's there, and she meets this guy. And it totally hits it off with him. She likes him. He kind of saves her from another kind of drunk pervert. And as they part ways, they don't get each other's number or anything. They part ways in the chaos, and that night, she falls asleep, and she dreams about what had happened in the past, which was my true story, right? She has a dream of it, and then she wakes up and goes, oh my god, I think that was him. And that's how the book takes off. So yeah, a pretty crazy past experience makes for a pretty great opener of a book, right? Like I said, that one will be coming out this fall, and I'm really excited for it. It sort of it is taking on a different sort of path than I had originally intended for it to take on, but it's really fun. It kind of starts out with the female and male main characters, together in like one general point of view, and then it kind of separates and follows them each on their own paths until they come back together. And within each chapter, there's almost a story within itself. There's different venues, different scenes, all sorts of different things taking place while still returning back to the main storyline each time. I don't really want to say much more without giving too much away, but I can tell you it's going to be a lot of fun, very eventful, and kind of cool. It's a different style than normal. It's gonna be sort of like, I guess I'd title it a romantic thriller, if you will. So yeah, hang tight for that. But this brings me back to the topic at hand. Where you draw your inspiration from. I'm curious where you guys draw your inspiration from. Go ahead, if you're listening in through Spotify, and either leave a comment or fill out the poll and let me know. Where do you, and it doesn't have to be in regards to writing. You don't have to be a writer to answer this question. It can be just in general in life. What inspires you? What inspires you to do the things you want to do? What motivates you? Yeah, write in and let me know, guys. Very curious to see what your answers are, if any of you draw from your everyday lives. As for me, my life has been very eventful. I've been fortunate in most respects to have a very eventful life, going down many paths. Not all of it was great. Not all of it felt as though it were me being fortunate. However, each and every event or thing that has happened in my life has been something that can give me inspiration for my writing. For example, in my late teens and early 20s, I did modeling, I acted, had a few speaking roles on TV shows like The Real NCIS, Lords of War, Age of the Walking Dead, to name a few. I was in some Sundance award-winning films, modeled for the Backdrop Outlet catalog, San Diego Modeling and Photography Group. So through all these things, I had really rich experiences, and it might be hard to tell from my past track record, but I'm actually a very shy person. So going into these things, what everybody didn't see was the nerves behind it all, the anxiety. So many times I almost walked away before auditions. I almost just turned and said, forget it, it's not worth it. But through all that, I learned that I'm one of those types of people that when I get pushed to do something and I feel like I'm about to break, that's when I snap into this mode where I'm like at my best. I'm very, very good under pressure, and it's a little reassuring to know that. But that too, that is a fun little twist that gives you a different perspective to put into writing. So drawing from those experiences and also my other real life, I have a degree in child and family development, in graphic design. I worked 15 plus years in the field with children and families. I was a case manager, a therapeutic teacher, all sorts of stuff like that. So I have all these different paths that I'm drawing from, and each and every one has excitement, romance, embarrassing moments, all sorts of stuff tied in. And that's my advice I'd give to authors, or people looking to kind of create a narrative, is what has happened to you. Sometimes, you really do forget about past experiences. Certain little things just kind of get overlooked or don't seem exciting enough. You wouldn't think to put them into a storyline or whatnot. But mixing that with other experiences, when you start entangling them, it kind of can make this fun little path, And as for my author friend who asked me, what if you don't have that exciting of a life? What if you're more of a homebody and haven't really been out and done that much? Well, you read books, you watch movies, you hear stories from others. Draw from each of those experiences that you've experienced through other methods and create your own narrative through that. Maybe you saw something that really stuck with you from a movie, and then twist it into something you saw happening, last week with your neighbors. So it can, anywhere you can find inspiration. You are the creator of these storylines. You just have to mold it in a way that you would find interesting. It's pretty much all in your hands. Everything you need is there. You just have to draw from it all, if that makes sense. For example, here, I'll give you an example. I'm going to just look around my room. Okay, I got something. I'll show you how easy it is, okay? I am just going to grab the closest thing to me. Okay, so it happens to be an electric guitar, right? That was pretty near to me in my room. I was trying to teach myself to play it for a while back, but I kind of got sidetracked, if you will. I do plan to learn a few songs on it eventually. Not right now, but eventually I will. However, if this were my motivation for a book, what way would I go with it? Let's see. I could be a girl wanting to learn to play and enroll in classes and, the typical fall in love with the music teacher. Okay? Or, better yet, the music teacher can end up being a chick that I become really good friends with. And then I meet her brother through her and go in that direction. You can make anything happen through these stories, just be creative with it. I challenge you. Choose any prop from your room or wherever you may be right now, anything around you. I don't care if it's a brush, if it's a puppy, if it's a shirt, if it's something cool like a guitar. I don't care what it is. Choose something around you, and I challenge you to make it sound exciting. Give it some sort of backstory. Where did it come from? Why is it there? And then you have to go to, what is it going to take you to? What is it going to take the main character to? A person, a love, a place, magical powers, whatever. Where is this thing going to lead to? Alright, so that's what you need, is a background, a backstory, and an end destination. That's all you need to get started. So using props are obviously a great way to go when you need inspiration, but another great way to go is drawing off of your embarrassing moments. Yeah, it might be like, whoa, what is she telling me to do? Why would I want to share that? Because it's interesting, it's fun, people can learn from your mistakes, but also kind of laugh along. After the fact, embarrassing moments aren't so bad later down the road. And when you mix it in, it's not really your embarrassing moment anymore. It becomes a part of this bigger picture that doesn't really have to do with you, but you can write from the feelings and emotions you felt during it, and you can put those into your words to create a feel for the scene that you're writing. For example, one of my most embarrassing moments was back in my, I want to say early 20s, and I was doing my first runway show. And for this runway show, we were walking runway in a club, and it was under black lights. And like I said, it was my first time. They didn't give me much direction. We got there, we were sent straight into hair and makeup. We had really big, tall hair. It was wild. So it was kind of like punk rock, the style. The dresses were really great. They were like really tight on top, and then kind of had like tutu bottoms. It's like made of the same material as tutus, like the lace kind of like tulle sort of stuff. And they were really fluffy on the bottom, kind of thin, but overall they had a really cool, fun look. And so we line up. I think I was like 5th in line for the runway. The first and second people go, and it's just like, polite applause. Third person goes, there's a little bit more applause. Fourth person goes, it's still, very, very neutral. And then I go out, right? And I get a few steps out, and somebody like whistles, and then somebody else is like, yeah. And then there's like lots of applause the whole time. And, I get out to the end of the runway, and I don't know how many of you have actually walked runway, but when you get to the end, you're supposed to strike like 2 to 3 poses typically. You pose to the side, to the front, and then to the other side. And you're supposed to make eye contact with each of the photographers at those points, or the audience, whoever may be there. As I'm doing that, there's like even more uproar, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting this huge head. I'm like, this is my first time. I must be nailing it. I'm really just knocking it out of the park. Way to go, me, Maybe this isn't as terrifying as I thought it was. And so I get back there, and one of my friends that was a photographer was back there, and he's like, so, how did that feel? And I was like, I don't know, it felt pretty good. There's, I think, a lot of people cheering. He's like, uh-huh. And he has like the smirk, and I'm like, oh god, what? Tell me, just say it. And he's like, so, nobody kind of like really gave you, any heads up on what to wear, right? I was like, what do you mean? I'm wearing what I'm supposed to be wearing. I'm wearing what they gave me to wear. He's like, I mean underneath. And I'm like, what? And he's like, here, I'm gonna let you see for yourself. Well, apparently, when you walk runway under black lights, you should never wear anything except for nude color undergarments. I had white, nobody told me. So, when I got under those black lights, I'm looking at the video he's showing me, and it just looks like 2 headlights coming down. 2 glowing headlights coming straight down the runway at everybody. And then when I turn around, of course, I had a white thong on, and I had a black heart in the back. And so, of course, as I turn around and the lights hit that, it shows that and the shadow of the heart. And that's why there's the uproar. It wasn't because I did anything great. It's because I made a fool out of myself, which I was mortified. Everybody's like, no, it wasn't that bad. It was kind of cool and this and that. But I was absolutely mortified. I was like, that's it. I'm done. Never doing it again. But looking back now, it's kind of hilarious, because I was like way in my past now. But in that time, I was just so embarrassed. But think about that. Add that into a book about a girl getting her first modeling gig, or anything. And even I could just make it into a club scene where a girl goes there and wasn't expecting that to happen, and it's an embarrassing moment. I could use anything like that, and it makes it a lot more fun. It gives this like layer of depth, you know, because the audience can relate to feeling embarrassed. They can relate to those emotions. So when you draw from things like that, it just gives it like this like real feel of connection, you know? So yeah, that's my overall gist of it. I draw from real life experiences. I try to put emotion in it. And, you know, I draw multiple things. I try to make it as fun with lots of twists and turns while sticking to the main storyline. And yeah, overall, that is my little, I guess, inspirational talk from the Writer's Corner. I hope you enjoyed hearing a few little secrets. Like I said, don't tell anybody. That's between me and you, the Midnight Readers. And yeah, I look forward to hearing your responses as well. Don't forget to write in or comments. Alright guys, thanks for listening. See you next week with a real life interview. Tune in.